right, guys, we're recording now. Thanks for coming to our webinar or online meeting or whatever you want to call it. I got my cool background here, and we got a special guest for you today. Because I'm a good networker, I always meet really interesting people, and I met Paul the first time. Was that Matt's event?
Yep.
And then, but did I meet you at the original? No, you weren't there the original time too, were you? No, you were. No, you only came the second time.
No, I was there in January of 2017.
Okay, so we met there, and then I invited you guys back.
Yep.
And we decided to go back to Matt's event, and then the plan was we were going to take yourself, Rachel, and Cole to Vegas because you guys have never been there, right? That was your first time.
Cole and Rachel hadn't.
You hadn't been. I mean, they hadn't been there. You've been there. Yeah. So it was fun taking them to Vegas for the first time. Paul's from Arkansas, and I mean, as far as knowledgeable real estate investor, I think he studies it. His background is in engineering, so I'm finding more and more a similarity that most engineers end up becoming really good real estate investors just because they're very analytical, but also Paul's a really good marketer, and he's good at implementing. I'm going to let him do his own introduction and kind of give you his background and where he is now with his real estate investing business. Because when I met him, he still had a job, and he set a goal to quit his job, and he did it. And I didn't hit my goal.
You did it. You did it.
I forgot what my goal was. I'm so shitty at that. But anyways. When you quit your job, I was like, I knew you were going to do it. So it wasn't even a question in my mind. Like I knew you were the type of person that when you set your mind to it, you're going to do it. And
well, that's a really good lead in there, Bo, because I'll tell you the rest of the story. That's really interesting because all roads lead back to Bo is what this is all going to come back to. So it's interesting. I was on the Bigger Pockets podcast a few weeks ago. And me being featured on that podcast is a direct link back to Bo. And he'll make very clear that that's was the impetus for it all, was everything is about Bo. You see, by happenstance, I just happened to meet you at that conference in January, and we hit it off, and we decided to come back. And you invited David Green, and he and I hit it off, or I guess we all hit it off at that the second meeting, and while we were there, or we actually did a deal together, me and David Green and Cole and Rachel, and he ended up writing about that on the Bigger Pockets podcast or his blog. And on the way we drove, or after the conference, we drove to Vegas to see the town. And on the way there, you and I were just talking, and we decided December 8th was your birthday and that we were going to have this big party. Your goal was a big party, a big meetup. And you went live on Facebook just like this. And you said, we're going on December 8th. I'm turning 40 and Paul's quitting his job on December 8th. And so you came up with a date. It wasn't my idea. But I had been working towards quitting my job. So you knew that. And I actually made that. I said, you know what? I like that. I like having a date. It's nice and round. We'll go celebrate after I quit. And so it turns out I was laid off on November 22nd. And it ended up my exit date officially was December 8th. So the universe just kind of lined up. And I wish I could say that I was the one that went in and told my boss, I'm out of here. But I was putting my I was on the edge of the cliff there, and he came by and just pushed me before I could jump. So interesting story. It's all because of Bo, and what you did is my success and failure in life is really all about you. You got me fired is what you did.
Yeah. I think if I really look at my skill set, it's definitely, I'm a connector of people. Although David Green, I just saw his post yesterday or 2 days ago, how he found you, and I was like, well, that's not exactly how it all happened, but and then he talks about he's buying deals in Arkansas. I said, well, these are my contacts, Green, and you never, he doesn't give me a shout out, but actually he gave me a shout out on Bigger Pockets one time, but
okay, good
as a guest, but he doesn't want me to steal all the attention there, so.
Yeah, so I was an engineer, and I had a day job, and it was a busy job. I worked somewhere between 40 and 50 hours a week, and I had to figure out a way to what I refer to as reach escape velocity, escape from the rat race. And I'm in Arkansas, and I wanted to invest in Arkansas where there's cash flow. I don't have access to local deals that have as much equity. You can certainly flip here, and I do some of that, but that's not my bread and butter. Because the flips here can be held as rentals, and it's just so hard to give up that long-term stream of income for just a few, sometimes only $30,000-$40,000. Whereas and if you're in California, you can, it's not even worth doing a flip for only $30,000-$40,000. So the systems I used can be used really in any decent population where there are cash flowing properties. So I'm thinking typically the Midwest and the Southeast is where this system works the best. I've done it in Little Rock, which is my specific market. Bo, I think you're using something similar in Indy. And I have clients on the outskirts of Portland, people in Tulsa, San Antonio, Michigan, Georgia, Florida. So I've tested this out in several places with other people. And basically any population center where there's a good price to rent ratio, the system works, and you can find both long-term buy and hold rentals. And even when the market is hot like it is now, there's still opportunity to find landlords or somebody who has a portfolio and they want to start selling off for whatever reason. That's typically what this is focused around, is how to find people who have a portfolio and just start creating your own little stream of deals by finding just a few people who are willing to sell.
So what's your kind of rule of thumb for price to rent ratio?
Yeah, typically you want, it depends on the category of the neighborhood. So if it's a Class A neighborhood, that's a really nice neighborhood. There's a Starbucks nearby. Typically, the way I characterize that as being Class A, then a 1% deal is actually pretty good there. But if it's in a really low end market, like Class D, Class C market, where it's just the rents in our neighborhood would be under $750 per month, then that would be, you're looking for more like a 2% rule. And then Class B, which is where I prefer to be, which is where you can find the most amount of deals, and where typically is closer to where the mean sales price is. Usually about a 1.5% deal is what you're looking for. Got
it. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, it's a lot better than we could do on the West Coast. So, yeah. But you kind of dabble. I've seen some of you also wholesale some deals. Mm-hmm. Obviously when people like get up at a meetup and they go, I'm a flipper, I'm a wholesaler, I think what people need to do is just say they're a real estate investor. Cause right. I mean, there's no way you can be one or the other if you're serious about your business, right? Cause sometimes you might have a lot of money. Sometimes it's hard to raise the money, and you always, some deals just make better wholesale deals. You make, for the amount of time you're putting in.
That's right. I don't like to go in with a preconceived idea as to how I'm going to monetize any given deal I have access to. So I like to take at least a three-pronged approach. And I'm either going to wholesale it, or I'm going to, like, exit strategy is what I'll call it. You either wholesale it, flip it, or hold it long-term. And by renting it out is what I call an exit strategy, but it's a very long-term exit strategy. And so you just kind of figure out if you want a quick nickel, a long dime, or a stream of income. And I think that we all need to be building streams of income so we don't have to work as much. And it's still fun to do deals and to be a deal maker and say, well, I'll flip this house because it's fun, or I'll wholesale this because I have access to the deal. That way you never have to turn off your marketing funnel. And as deals come in, you can monetize them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So is your goal, are you trying to buy a lot of these with owner carries and subject to, or are you just mm-hmm. borrowing a lot from IRAs, or are you going to talk about that in your PowerPoint? Yeah. I don't want to take you off the bat, but
yeah, I do all three, and some bank loans. So typically what I do is when I come to a deal, I have a hierarchy of my preference. I don't always acquire with this kind of financing, but this is the order I want it. And the first one is I want owner financing or seller carry. That's my single absolute most favorite way to acquire property, because I want to deal with another human being that I can negotiate with in the future if things don't work out the way we plan. Whereas with a bank, if I get them as financing, there's no negotiating. Well, I say there's none, but it's hard to negotiate with a bank when there's a credit crunch. their paperwork is set up so that they're protected and not you. So I prefer to do owner financing. If I can't do that, then I see if subject to the existing mortgage works, sub 2. If that doesn't work, then I'll consider lease option. Then I'll consider some of the other kind of clever ways of doing it. And all cash is the last offer, but oftentimes those are the scenarios that's what the buyer ends up wanting a lot of the time, is an all cash offer. And so I'm happy to give them all cash, but it's going to be on a term that works for me so that I can execute one of my exit strategies.
Nice. Now, do you have like a deal analyzer that you plug in and it factors all these 3 options on one sheet? So it's just easy to kind of like, oh, well, it makes
money. Yeah. I took one that Matt Terrio had and I modified it a little bit, but it's largely influenced by what I'm not sure where he got it from, or maybe he created it, but it's a really good setup to where you figure out what the cash offer is. And then you do interest only offer, or you do a principal only offer for carrier financing or owner carry financing. And that gives you the 3 extremes of how I'll do a given deal. And rarely does the seller actually take one of those 3 offers when I send them a 3-letter option of intent. But what it does is it opens up the gambit of what are the possibilities. And if if one of those 3 hits something that they need, then we can negotiate.
Okay. I don't want to take it out of order, but can I ask you, are you still, you still working with your VA? The same VA that you had a few months ago?
I don't have the same one anymore. I've gotten to the point now where I have enough deal flow that I don't have to create or work really hard to create streams of this avalanche of leads. I don't want personally to build a juggernaut of a company where I have 5, 10, 20 employees and I'm going into other markets. My lifestyle is very happy the way it is, based on just kind of native marketing. So I'm just riding the momentum of what I've done before. And I come across landlords all the time that have 10, 20, sometimes 100 properties in Little Rock. This is just a small market that they say, I want to sell my properties. And then I figure out if I want to buy one of those, if I want to wholesale one of those, if I want to flip one of those. And I partner with a lot of other people to make a deal work somehow or another. So I'm always working on a deal or 2 in any given week, if not more, but I don't have to create this funnel anymore because honestly, I don't have the scale to handle it. So I've actually backed off on the VAs for personal reasons because I don't want to create another job for myself. I'm no longer employed and I want to stay that way. I'm unemployable now.
But are you still doing some of the techniques you were doing before?
Yeah.
Or you actually just built it now where you're not really going on and doing the same kind of marketing, going on Craigslist and things that you were doing in the past?
I mean, I definitely do still go to Craigslist and scrape. And I have someone that does that occasionally, but that strategy to scrape Craigslist or Zillow or for sale by owner or FSBO, however you want to call it, is a great cheap way if you're just getting started. It's not the best way to find deals at scale. If you want to find deals at scale, you have to kind of go up the value ladder and do direct mail or do this frustrated landlord that we'll talk about here in a minute, and how to find people who have a portfolio that are open or would consider selling. And that's where the big opportunities come. And that's when you get to kind of pick from the litter and say, okay, you have 20 properties. I want these 2. And then once these 2 are successful, we'll reconsider the other ones.
So that's a great strategy. So, like in areas like Little Rock, I mean, anywhere you're going to find people that own lots of rentals, right?
Yeah.
Like they were able to scale their business.
Yep.
So are you marketing to them, or are you just kind of meeting them and then just building a relationship? I mean, how are you getting in front of them? Through your meetups and things? One
is through meetups. Yeah. Just, I would say networking with a purpose. When you're around business owners, you'll be surprised how many business owners own rentals. And a lot of people aren't always comfortable owning rentals. If you don't learn how to do it well on the front end, or you learn how to buy right on the front end, holding real estate can be a nuisance instead of an opportunity like we think it is. But if you want an intentional way to find frustrated landlords, it's to actually reach out to, what I do is I scrape property management websites and I find all the available for rent properties, and I mail specifically the owner of those properties with this 3-letter option of intent. And sooner or later, one of those people will call you up and say, hey, I got this letter, let's talk. And you have coffee with them or something because I'm local. They're here in my town, and we talk. And like, I have 27 rentals. I'd like to just sell the whole lot. What could you do? And that's what I've never heard anybody else talk about, that of how to find serious. It's almost like apartment investing, where you can buy an entire portfolio. But if you're just getting started, I don't recommend going to try and buy 27 properties at once. Find somebody that has 27 properties and then pick from those the ones that make the most sense for you.
And then after you perform, then they're
right. And who are they going to sell to?
Right. And they probably like selling them to you on terms for tax reasons, right? So
yeah.
It's actually smart, a genius idea.
Yeah, it is.
And then it makes it easy because it's, you know, I mean, when you got a bunch of deals to close on and you're scraping around to, you know, raise the capital, this kind of, I'm sure a lot of them would be fine with very little down too, once you've proven to them that I'm performing and you don't have to worry about the property.
Right. Typically they're more aggressive or more demanding on the front end of the, on the down payment for the first couple. But once you get a few under your belt, they tend to kind of open up and get a little more flexible. But one thing you need to factor in is whatever down payment that you give them has to be enough to cover the recapture of their basis. So you're taking a depreciation the entire time. They have to recapture that whenever they sell it, when they sell it on an installment sale. So your down payment has to be big enough. So you want to make sure that any offer that you're giving somebody is considering their tax situation and that you're setting them up for success in the future.
And by knowing that, they probably think, well, this guy has done his homework.
If I can repeat that to somebody who's offering to sell, they're like, I want to work with this guy because I don't know what he just said. And they go and talk to their accountant. He says, yeah, he's exactly right. He knows what he's talking about.
So if they're 10 years in, right, they've owned it for 10 years, they're depreciating it over 27.5.
Yep.
Right. And then there's basically a calculation.
Yeah, you have to go figure out how much because you're only depreciating the value of the actual improvement, not the entire property. So it doesn't count land. So you have to kind of do a back of the napkin math. And what I do is I say, I know I need to cover this. Go talk to your accountant and tell me how much you need to recover your basis.
Yeah.
And their accountants, and then you say, and make sure and ask your accountant and confirm with them that how good of an investment this is for you to sell on an installment basis, and ask him why he doesn't encourage you to do it before that. And because accountants know very quickly that an installment sale has a lot of tax advantages to the seller.
Yeah. And I think a lot of property owners, like, they don't understand all this, right? So they're like, well, I just want the cash, but really, you don't want the taxable consequence now, right? And so I think as investors, we need to learn this and learn how it works, and then be able to explain it to these other investors, because then it's going to make seller finance deals way easier, and they'll go, yeah, I get it. Because what's the point of paying a bunch of taxes if you don't need to? That's the whole point. Like, you can make as much money as you want, but if you're paying the highest tax bracket, it really doesn't make sense to trust it that hard. Exactly.
What I tell people is that I want to figure out what they want the money for first. And if they need to go buy a house, okay, I get it. I can't solve that. But if they just want if they're going to go put it in the bank, the way I usually approach it is, so if you were able to get the 70,000 you want for this, what are you going to do with that? I'm looking to do some investments myself. Where are you going to get a high rate of return? And they'll say, oh, well, I don't know. I just going to put it in the bank. Oh, what kind of rate of return are you getting there on a CD or mutual account? And they'll say, oh, well, maybe 2%. I was like, well, what if I could double that for you? And so I just walked them down the path of where they could get 4% more than what they were going to get on their money, and it's only 4%.
Yeah. I mean, I've been too generous on what I pay my lenders, but at the same point, getting them in the game, and then you got to start somewhere.
Right, and you'll get way lower interest rate from a seller than you will anywhere else.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's how you're able to scale, right? Like, if you try and raise money for every deal, you're going to get stuck most likely, because at some point your contacts are going to be tapped out.
Yep. And
you can't keep going to the same reservoir without paying them off a few times, because nobody's going to lend all their money to one person.
Right.
So these strategies, are the strategies that can help you build a business. And that's kind of why I like markets like Little Rock. I like markets like in Indiana and parts of the Midwest, because they're more deal friendly, because the price points are the rent to price ratios are in line. And so that's like the whole,
the numbers just work.
Yeah.
The numbers just work. Yeah.
And so like most of us on the line right now are, we're West Coasters. So we're like, yeah, I wish I could find something for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 grand that, but the good thing about Little Rock too, everything I've researched, the economy seems super solid and it seems like it's continuing to grow and thrive.
Yeah, it's not a sexy place, and what I mean by that is you're not going to get this exuberant appreciation investing in Little Rock is not an appreciation play. It is a cash flow play, and it just doesn't get a lot of press. Back in 2008, when there was a crash, it definitely affected us, but it wasn't nearly as severe as it was anywhere else. I just rocked along. I didn't really notice the tumult that went on in the rest of the country, where in Vegas, people are losing 50% of their home values. Mm-hmm. Only in very high end levels did you see that here in Arkansas. If you were in the upper, for us, like 600,000 plus is a huge house, like a mansion. That's what was hit. If you were in the average range, you got a little blip in your evaluation, and you didn't really notice it unless you're trying to sell.
Yeah, I mean, and quite honestly, I think the West Coast is like the same position again, where it's like people are paying way too much again, mm-hmm. and I don't see any like signs that, like, we still have very low inventory. But the thing that I think what's going to happen is that all these FHA buyers that are getting 97% financed and they're overpaying for properties, but the properties are appraising right now.
Sure.
That as soon as there's a little bit of a market correction, there's going to be a lot of short sales. So I think there'll be a bigger short sale, downturn right now. I don't think we're going to have a huge setback, but I do see something coming. I don't think it's like tomorrow, but if you're not cash flowing here, then it's a little bit.
Yeah, if you're wherever you are, if you're flipping, flip with care. Make sure you're not overbuying on your acquisition size, and don't overextend yourself by getting 3, 4, 5, 6 flips in a row, or out at the same time, and then get caught with all that inventory. If there is a correction, I'm kind of careful right now. If I'm flipping, I want to flip not on the extreme edges of what's possible. I want to do layups right now when I'm doing flips.
Yeah, I like the quick ones anyways. Somebody asked about your 3 option offer. So we don't have enough time to get into it, but we're going to ask Paul back another time just to go over this because it's that good. But just give him the nuts and bolts of your 3-letter option, and then we can dive into it on another call.
Okay, how about this? I'll just share my screen and I'll show you the actual one I have. I already have it.
Oh, that's even better. There you go.
Yeah, you kept saying, I don't want to get you off.
Yeah.
And then you would.
That's because I have ADD. Come on now.
You can't help yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, come on now. There we go. So let's just jump down. Let's get past all this stuff. Little Rock Market. So what we'll do is I'll do a couple of case studies after I cover my method here. I'll just jump down. Come on now. So here's the tired landlord method, where I was talking about, where you use a VA or do it yourself, and you scrape property management websites. And what you're doing is you're trying to find properties that are for rent. And what we know about a property that's for rent that's being listed on a property management website is that it's in pretty good shape. But we also know that it's vacant. So it doesn't need a lot of repairs. And anybody who has a vacant property has a problem. And unless they get it rented quickly, they might consider selling it. So what you're trying to do is trying to catch the tired landlord before he or she has thought about selling. So what we do is we mail the owner a 3-letter option of intent with these 3 offers. 1 is an all cash. That's typically 70% of the ARV minus repairs minus wholesale. So the typical Mayo formula. Very unlikely that a property owner that has a property in good shape will sell at that low cash offer, but you never know. And then we offer 85% of the ARV with a 5% down payment and interest-only payments on the balance. And so the interest rate is usually about 3 and 6%. That's all being based off of what the market rent for that property is. I back into what I can afford my mortgage payments to be at interest only, so long as I'm getting a 15% return on investment. So that's option number 2. Option number 3 is I offer 100% of the ARV. So whatever the going value of the property is, I'll offer 100% with 5% down, and then principal payments for the rest. So basically, 0% financing. I just don't use those terms. And what that does is I just amortize it out to figure out how long I'll need to make those principal payments to make sure my cash flow works to pay them off.
You mean that the as-is value, not the ARV?
Well, in this case, it's the property's already fixed up. So
got it.
You know, it's.
So you're giving 100% of value, but you're buying on your terms, and that's, you know, what people don't understand is that, or some people don't, is that, you know, you could overpay sometimes, but if you get terms in a long enough seller carry deal, you know, it's way more valuable. I mean,
think about it, it's 0%, because if you were to do the net present value of what you're actually paying for it, it's way less than the actual value, because you're not factoring. Most people don't sit around and think about what is the time value of money of taking payments for the next 20 years. And this is just the foundation of the offer. These are the 3 extremes. And then I can adjust from here according to whatever makes sense for the seller, because all likelihood, the seller is not going to take any of these 3. And what I say is, which of these is most to your liking? And if there's any sort of motivation, any sort of just kind of tiredness there, then there might be a conversation to where I can get one of those to work. And typically, if they're calling me like, I got this letter, what it did is it opened up a conversation. This is really what this is allowing me to do. And now I get to go talk to the actual owner, have coffee with them, figure out what they actually need. Or if you're remote, you have either your agent or somebody, or you just call them up and say, "Yeah, I'm from California and I'm looking to invest in some properties there, but right now everything's so hot, I can't find any properties. So would you be interested in selling?"
What does your management look like? Are you outsourcing your property management?
Yes. I'd self-manage some of mine, but I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to delegate that out more and more. And yeah, I have 3 different local property managers that I've done experiments with, that I've had some very reasonable results with. And if you're managing or you're owning remotely, you have to have a good property manager. So that's something that I would be happy to set you up with. Or if you're looking in another market that you want to do this strategy in, finding the property manager is one of the most important people to connect with.
Yeah, totally. And that was what anytime you invest out of state, it really comes down to, there's a lot of deals out there in certain markets.
Yeah.
Even right in a hot market like right now. But the thing is that you have to be able to execute, because these deals can take forever to rehab. When tenant turnover and things like that. That's why it really comes down to connections, right? And it all comes back to Bo Eckstein, because he's the connector.
Hey, I'm telling you, good things happen when you surround yourself with people who are doing deals and have a network. Anytime it's like a spiderweb effect, and your network is now my network, and vice versa. If I ever need to ask for help, then we call each other up and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a property manager in Indy. Can you help me?" And you'd be happy to.
Exactly.
So this is an actual screenshot of the offer page of the 3-letter option of intent. And this is just a kind of a generic example, but you have an all cash offer. And then you have the interest only payments. And then option 3 is for 30 years, paying about $475. And you notice that the payments here, a lot of times the numbers are not rounded out too much. Like it's $5,340 and it's $474.67. That makes it appear as though someone's really given some thought to that. And what I'm trying to do is trying to catch somebody on, do they want a quick offer on number 1, or number 3, do they want their price, which is probably what the value the property's worth, or number 2, do they want some extra cash, or do they want just interest payments? It just makes somebody think in a way that very few people stop and think about.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I love this. I got to start using it.
So what's next? You want to talk about finding money?
Finding the money. Yep.
Okay. So I often talk about that you need to find the deal first before you find the money. And I'm talking about finding money here. There's a lot of different types of money you can find. I'm talking about finding private money. You can definitely use banks. You can definitely use all your current assets like HELOCs and borrow from your 401k and all these kind of
Hard
things.
money guy like me.
Yeah, it's viable. It works.
But private money's the best.
For the right thing. But if you want to hold property for 5 years, hard money doesn't work. So what you can find is lazy money is what I call it. There's money sitting around in retirement accounts at epic levels at this day and age. The stock market is booming. It's going like crazy, and people are getting nervous, and they want something else, and but they don't want a CD rate of 1 or 2%. They want something else. And I don't know of any other type of investment somebody can do where they can get 6 to 8% on their money and not have the hassle of managing the property themselves. If they want to put their money to work and have it secured by real estate, let them be the bank for you. That's what we're setting this up for.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So here's how it works. So you have a private lender, and he gets this bright idea to lend his money. So he uses documents, promissory note and mortgage, just like a bank does, and they fund you to purchase a house and get it rehabbed, and you place a tenant. The rent payment comes in as normal, and then you pay interest payments to the private money lender. And typically this is interest only payments. This is not an amortizing loan that is going to pay back in time. There's usually like a 5 or 10-year balloon built into this, so you can solve for your debt at a later time. But what it does is when you're doing interest only payments, you can afford to pay a little bit higher interest rate than you would from a bank right now, and still cash flow, because there's no principal payment included in there. Because the first 5 or 10 years of a amortizing loan anyway, you're very little paid down in the first place. And so let's just do a fictitious example of $100,000 where you're borrowing at 6% interest. So you borrow $60,000 to purchase the house and $40,000 to renovate it. And let's say this house is worth $150,000 and it rents for $1,300. That is pushing the 1% rule, but you got it for $100,000. So you're well into it at under the 1% rule. So you have the rent payments that come in, you cover your normal expenses, taxes and insurance and maintenance reserves, and then you make your payment to the lender of 6% interest. And then what's left over is your net cash flow, your profit. And that's how you would set up. And it's very important to show a slide like this to a private money lender so they see how things work, because this is not intuitive to a lot of people. They don't understand. When they say you're the bank, they still don't get it. You have to kind of show it to them like this. And the next slide that I usually show them is, say, this is a property that's worth $150,000. And I could borrow up to $112,000 and $500 and still be at 75% loan to value. So I typically don't want to borrow more than 75% loan to value with a private lender, even though some of them might actually do it with you. You want to protect your private lenders. They're putting a lot of faith in you, and you want to make sure you can afford to make those payments back to them.
That's good.
Yeah. And so here's the idea. You've probably all seen this before, but if you're out-of-state investor, you need to find your team. You're in the middle, and you need to kind of piece together all these players. And I have newbies sometimes ask me, well, when you say build your team, does that mean they actually are employees, or they kind of work for you? No, they're contractors. They're part of your network. And so I think network might be a better team, but or another word than team. And you just need to find some place to deploy your capital, or deploy the capital that you have access to. And you need to find deals. And the way you find deals out of state is through real estate agents, through wholesalers, bird dogs, or some source that you come up on your own, like I just described, where you can actually hire a VA or do this yourself and find deals the way that nobody else that I know of is looking for. And then you have to find a local team. And typically what I do is I tell people, you shouldn't be so focused on trying to find the right market. It doesn't matter. The Midwest and the Southeast, the numbers tend to work about every major metropolitan area that you can think of, with the exception of maybe Nashville. Austin's too hot, probably. The really big cities like Dallas and Atlanta are getting pretty hot. But if you go far enough out of the circumference of the major city, you can find the cash flowing areas. And wherever you know somebody that is a reliable source of one of these people I have listed on here, start with them. find a local contact in a city that has numbers that work, and that's how you find the right city. You don't just pick out of thin air and say, oh, I'll do Tulsa, or I'll do Kentucky. You could find deals in both of those places, but who's going to help you do it? You need the people first, then the deals.
Totally.
So that's my thing.
Cool. Well, we'll do some questions.
Okay.
Thank you for putting the PowerPoint together too.
Sure.
Did you actually? You can go back, and I think we can go look at a couple of your case studies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we want to just kind of see what you're looking at.
Okay. Great. Lost control here. Hang on. There we go. We'll start at the low end and work our way up. We're streaming, so this is kind of okay. So here is a low income Class C neighborhood. This is a property that I own, and when I bought it, it looked like it did on the left. It was in pretty bad shape, but nothing structurally wrong with the place. The roof was, and the picture on the right is pretty much the way it looks today. The after repair value is about $65,000. I bought it for $30,000 all cash. I couldn't get him to do owner financing. So if I had to do this all over again, I would have been smarter and asked what they needed. And I found out later on that they needed to solve for $17,000 of alimony taxes. And I would have honed in on that and probably been able to negotiate that down a lot better. But I was newer at the time. And it needed about $15,000 in repairs. And the market rent is $750. And it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, which I like that scenario. And this one is not entirely brick, but it's brick all the way around on the bottom half, which I like. And it's a starter home in a low income area. And this is what it looks like afterwards. And so these are the tenants that actually moved in and fixed it up. I mean, I rehabbed it, but all the staging that you see there, like it's very professionally staged, is just them living in it. That's not a professional staging job for a flip. That's nice. them moving into it.
Is this Section 8 or regular?
No, it's not Section 8, but it is a Section 8 neighborhood, though. There are many other Section 8 tenants in this area. I would call this area probably like 50% owners and 50% tenants. Yeah. And this is an exceptional case. This is probably the nicest rent house at a low income I've ever seen. So it's just a good example of what can happen even in the low end.
Looks great. And we love having tenants that actually take care of the property like this.
Yeah.
They all did it. That'd be awesome.
So ARV, someone asked, it's after repair value. So anytime you're looking at a property, you're always trying to figure out what the retail value would be if you fixed it up. Okay.
When did you do your first deal? Well, like how long ago was it?
It was 3 years ago in August. So I'll be 3 years old in real estate investing starting next month, or starting in 2 months.
Yeah, you just kind of dove in and just absorbed so much information.
I did. Yeah, I was an engineer, and so numbers didn't scare me. And I'd done a lot of reading on how to invest, and I've always been kind of a closet investor, I guess, and never really took any action. A Monday morning quarterback type of investor. Mm-hmm. And so I one day just realized that I had to get out of corporate America. It was just sucking the soul out of me, and I just said, I know this is a viable way. I can't think of another way to create my own business other than real estate, where I can just step into it one house at a time until I get enough of them to cover my living expenses. So
you don't own any duplexes or fourplexes. You're just doing strictly single family right now?
I'm all single family. I'm not opposed to multifamily. There aren't as many exit strategies with multifamily. I do have one kind of sixplex. They're all single families technically, but I bought it all in one lump deal, and they're kind of like in a horseshoe, and there's like a little string of houses, and they kind of behave like multifamily in that you have to deal with the tenants knowing each other and knowing they're all owned by the same person, and they kind of fight, some squabble sometimes. And the turnover tends to be a little bit higher because it kind of performs like a multifamily. So that's my only kind of actual personal foray into something that's like multifamily. I probably before long, I will get multifamily. Just right now in Little Rock, multifamilies are trading at just ridiculously low cap rates. And I just feel like it's very easy to get exposed into a deal that you might get caught in.
You guys are 2 hours ahead of us. It's 7:12 here, right? What are you guys?
It's 9:12 here. Yep.
Okay, 2 hours, yeah.
Yep.
Mountain time.
Yep. Central time, but yeah.
Central.
Yep. So case study number 2 is this in Little Rock is a moderate income Class B. So this is someone who's probably making $60,000 to $80,000, and it's the after repair value of this property is about $92,000. And I bought this one for $30,000 all cash. I borrowed the money, and the $25,000 for repairs was all borrowed money as well. And it rents for $1,050. And it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, nearly 1,800 square feet. And you can see it's a bright, clean house after repair, but this is how it looked before. So on the left, you can see the kitchen, dark and dank, and it was not well cared for. But there was nothing scary. It smelled bad, but it wasn't anything too scary. And we really didn't do a whole lot to the outside. We cleaned it up, did a little bit of I would say landscaping, but we really just mowed the grass and pulled the weeds and kind of didn't do anything special with the shrubs. So you go back there, it's the same house. We left the same roof on there because we weren't flipping it. We had to replace a couple of windows, and then we just brightened the whole place up, painted everything white, and put new flooring down.
Nice. It's amazing what little paint.
Yeah, it's night and day, and it's a big difference. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is a pretty good size house, nearly 1,800 square feet. So it had 4 bedrooms.
So, I mean, is the market still right there where you can still buy deals like this? I mean, you're finding more and more deals like this.
Yeah, like anywhere, these aren't all on the MLS at $30,000. You have to go find them. You have to go do your frustrated landlord marketing, or your direct mail, or you're driving for dollars, or just really work hard on the MLS and make lots of offers that are really low. And the problem is finding an agent who would be willing to play that game. And if you can still find deals on the MLS.
Rachel.
Yeah, she won't do it. It's too much work. Too much work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame her. I mean, because especially at HUD and those REOs, man, the paperwork is a killer. And so here's a what I would call middle income Class A property. This is in a suburb of Little Rock, and this is a nicer neighborhood. This is like a really high end starter home, about 1,800 square feet, 165,000 ARV, and so we bought it for $120,000, subject to the existing mortgage. So the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance mortgage payment was about $1,000. And then we put about $10,000 of repairs into it. And it now rents for $1,450. So we're all into it for $130, if you want to look at it that way. And so it meets the 1% rule. And it's this is probably the best house that we've ever purchased. It's pretty nice. I mean, I would happily live there. I would move my family there and live there for years. It's that nice.
And then how long did they have left on their loan?
20 years. So we were 10 years into it. And so there's really starting to make some meaningful progress on the principal pay down. And it was like less than 4% interest. So I'm not in any hurry to pay it off fast. There's cash flow, and every time we rent it out, it gets more rent.
So when you're taking a property subject to, are you putting it in a trust or?
Yes.
Yeah.
We put it in a land trust with a trustee and we purposely do something where the trustee's name is not anywhere associated to who the actual owners are. And then we have the beneficial interest be an LLC that is owned by us. And then we do disclose to the to the mortgage company that a property manager will be making the payments. And it's kind of our hedge against this idea that we didn't disclose to them that somebody else was making payments. And then
it's justifiable if it's a property management company too.
Totally.
Yeah,
but see, we never say it's a property management company. It just says something like Thompson Properties. It just, it's like Thompson.
You insinuate, yeah.
Yeah, Thompson Properties will be making payments from here on going out. And so we never really say this is a property manager, but we never say that we're not the owner either. So it's kind of a hedge of our way of covering all of our bases. And if interest rates go up a lot and banks make it a point to actually start calling loans and they're actually going to do the research, I think this kind of strategy will be one of the last ones they would try and catch, because you absolutely have a right to transfer the property into a trust. And so the name of this family was, I don't know, Jones or something. Let's say it was Jones, and we transferred into the Jones Family Trust. And so that's a very normal. And when we did so, we had the family as the owner as the beneficial interest. And then after the closing, we did a subsequent transfer of beneficial interest of the land trust from the person to our LLC. And do you follow?
Yeah. But what I was going to ask too is the other thing you could do when you go to liquidate this is you could wrap it, right? And you
Totally.
can the spread. I mean, there's so many. That's when it gets really creative and it's just amazing what you can do. But we won't talk about that now. That's going to go over.
It does get kind of complex. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And so this is what the property looked like beforehand. So it had the original granite, it had original kind of floors, but it was mostly just cleanup. And then the landscaping was in bad shape, and there were a lot of holes in the walls and stuff like that. But there was nothing major. It was, I mean, it's a big house, and it was only $10,000. So but when you walked in, you had to kind of know what you were doing to see past all the crazy in there.
Yeah. Find the hidden treasure.
Yeah, that's right.
That's nice.
So how are the questions coming?
Let's see here. We talked about the three options.
Yep.
We're good there. I think what we'll do too, because I know it's getting late for you. I mean, we can keep talking for hours, but I think what we'll do, if you don't mind, is one day. I'd like you to come out here and talk, and if we could ever get you out here. But,
sure.
I think what we could do too is, one is let them know where they can reach you at, and you sometimes have inventory that you can help some of our out-of-state investors.
Yeah. So let me go to that slide. So you can go to my website at pauldavidthompson.com. Oh, right there. So pauldavidthompson.com. I have a podcast that you can subscribe to and get updates about some tips and tricks that I'm doing and free giveaways. And then if you want to find actual deals in Little Rock, you can go to wincoreinvest.com, and you can get on my mailing list, and you'll get access to the current properties that I have. And then, of course, I have my email and my cell phone number there. Take a screenshot of that. Shoot me a lead if you ever want to do deals in Little Rock, or really anywhere in Arkansas. I'm open. And then I'm also running a mastermind. It's not based in Little Rock. It's just a Zoom call just like this. And it's it's for people who are already investing and that they're trying to take their life to the next level with real estate. You've probably found this, that unless you go to conferences and unless you have your own RIA, real estate can be kind of a lonely business, because you don't really need to go into an office and have all the kind of the banter the good parts of working. So sometimes it can be kind of lonely and you need help with deals. So I run a mastermind to help with that.
Cool. So, what's your big goal going forward now? I mean, now that you're unemployed, right?
Yeah, I'm permanently unemployable. I'm actually working on building streams of income, like multiple streams of income. So I have my rentals, and I'll pick up rentals here and there. I still do flips and wholesales where I don't do a lot of the work. I just kind of am the manufacturer of the deal. So it doesn't take, I can do it all from a phone typically. And then I'm also doing coaching and consulting as another stream of income. And then I'll be coming out with a course, a web series here in a couple months. So if you get on any of those websites, if you want to be interested in hearing updates about that, that'll be coming. So for me, it's just creating new projects where they can each stand on their own, but they're different ways of generating income, and they're all fun projects for me and they're really all around real estate. That's just kind of the bedrock for me.
So if you're looking at like a per door, like I need to make at least $350 per house, like net at the end of the month. Is that kind of your number? What's your number where it makes sense or not?
Typically I'm looking for 250 per door. And there are certain circumstances where you can get 350, but you have to get the property at absolute song to be able to get it. And unless you're buying for with private money that has really low interest rate or something, with the current cost of money, it's not practical to do that without any of your own money to get 350 a door, unless you just get a sweetheart deal.
But 250 is pretty much you're borrowing all the money, right?
Yeah.
So you're leveraged to the hilt, essentially.
To 75, 80%.
Right. Yeah. So you're always every deal you're doing, you're typically having 20 to 25% of equity.
Yep.
When it's fixed, or how you're buying it.
Yep.
Or if you don't have the equity, you're buying on really good terms where it makes up for that. Yeah,
when you're buying on owner financing, you can get the 350, 500 cash flow deals if you buy it right, for sure. That's where the power comes in, but you really got to hustle and make a lot of offers to get enough people or to find people who will owner finance. I don't want to ever sugarcoat how difficult that can be. But the thing is, what I can promise you is that if you never ask, you'll never get it.
Okay. Another question real quick. So we're going back to, like, actually what I'd really like to do is I had this idea a while back to do this event called REI Collaborate.
Yeah.
So when are we gonna do it in Vegas? We picked a date. We'll talk offline.
Yeah.
But anyways, going back to the question, because I want Paul out here for 2 days, kind of teaching his strategies, because I learned from him. I think I like what he does, how he breaks it down. Out of everybody I've learned from, I would say his approach is the best, easiest approach out there, and we can all do it. I mean, it's just simple. It's like actionable, and it's not rocket science. So anyways, we'll work on that 2 or 3 day kind of workshop thing. I think.
Okay. We got a question here about the insurance on the sub 2. So I'll answer that if you have time.
Yeah, please do.
So the question is that I discussed payments to the lender, but not how I get insurance coverage. So what I do is I get insurance normally the way you would on any property, but when I do it in a trust, the actual insured is the trustee of the trust. So 123 Main Street Land Trust, S. Jones as trustee, and then I do the appeal box where I get the mail, and so it's private, so it's a PO box. It's you can't sue to get that as far as I know. It's not public knowledge for sure. And then you need to put the mortgagor, the original borrower from the property, as an additional insured. Most banks or servicing companies, when they see the change of insurance and the borrower, the original borrower's name is not on there, they'll put in bank enforced insurance. And you don't want to pay 2 insurances, so you want to make sure and put the original borrower as an additional insured.
And also on subject 2, you should always get a
power of attorney.
Power of attorney, because when you're down the road, you're looking to pay it off, or you have to do something, you need the permission. So you need a power of attorney. I believe it would have to be a specific.
No, it's a specific power of attorney for you to do anything you need to with that particular property. Yeah. So basically, it's the same way the property manager, if they want to be able to call and get some sort of information from the insurance company, sometimes they'll get a power of attorney. So anytime I sell or I'm buying a property from a seller, sub 2, I always get a power of attorney, so that me and my LLC's company have permission to contact the bank and do anything I need to with the bank, as though I were the property manager. And so the person who actually gets the power of attorney is the manager of the company that I have an LLC for.
Cool. Well, let's we could go all night, but
yep.
I know it's late there, and I want to eat some dinner.
Okay.
But let's we'll link back again, and we'll hopefully get you to come back out, and then we'll also maybe get you to come out live and
looking forward to it. I want to come to the land of milk and honey.
Yes. Cool. Well, it was great seeing you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we got your contact information. If you want to share those slides too.
Yeah.
I can when I embed this on the website, I can embed the slides with it too, and share it to everybody, and because this will get replayed when people want to watch it on demand.
Yep.
But cool. Well, you have a good night. Say hi to Cole and Rachel for me, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Take care.
See ya.